His wedding ring was on the kitchen counter, still wet, and my phone was filming it because I could hear a woman laughing through his Bluetooth earbuds. He snatched the earbuds out like they were burning him, but the laugh kept echoing in my head, bright and practiced, like she'd done it 1,000 times for an audience. He told me it was a work thing without looking at me, and his hand covered the ring like hiding it would erase what I'd heard. I didn't ask who she was, because the bigger problem was the screen lighting up in his palm with her name and a heart emoji, right there in our kitchen. He didn't notice the camera angle I'd set, or the little reflection in the toaster showing his face go tight when her message came in. He typed back so fast his thumbs blurred, and when he finally looked up, he smiled the way he smiles at waiters, friendly, empty, meant to end the interaction. He kissed my forehead like a stamp of ownership, grabbed his ring, and slid it back on like it was armor. Then he said, "We're fine," as if saying it could weld the air back together. His phone buzzed again before he even reached the hallway, and I watched his shoulders lift with relief, like that vibration was oxygen. He left for the gym wearing cologne he never wore for me. The moment the door clicked, I replayed the video, not because I needed proof, but because I needed to hear the laugh again and decide if it sounded like someone who knew him, or someone who was collecting him. When I scrubbed the audio, her voice sharpened into words I couldn't quite catch, except for one sentence that landed like a coin on tile: "You promised." The next day, he rearranged our living room. Not the furniture, his life. He bought flowers on his way home and set them in a vase like a prop, then he cooked dinner with music playing, like he was trying to drown out the space where guilt lives. He asked me how my day was with a softness that felt rehearsed, and when I answered, his eyes flicked to his phone every time it lit up, like a dog checking the door. He kept it face down, but the screen still flashed on the table, lighting up the underside of his knuckles. That night he fell asleep fast, and his phone vibrated under his pillow. I didn't touch it. I didn't need to. Because his mouth moved in his sleep, and he whispered a name I'd never heard before, like it belonged to someone who'd already moved into his body. In the morning, he said he had to stay late and didn't even bother making up a reason. He just said it with confidence, like confidence was the same thing as permission. At lunch, I got an email from his company HR. It wasn't addressed to me, but the subject line had his name, and I recognized the template because I'd helped him polish his resume years ago when he was desperate enough to let me into his ambition. The email said there had been a complaint about inappropriate conduct, and there would be a meeting. He told me later that it was office drama, and his laugh was too loud, like he was trying to scare the truth away. That evening he brought home a new suit bag, still in plastic, and when I asked why, he said, "Just want to look sharp," while his phone kept buzzing like a trapped insect. He stopped eating. He started working out twice a day. He started checking the front window every time a car slowed down outside, like he expected consequences to arrive on 4 wheels. Then, on Friday, he came home and handed me his phone. He held it out with 2 fingers, like it was contaminated. "Read it," he said. I scrolled, and my stomach went cold, because it wasn't flirty texts or selfies. It was paragraphs. She wrote like she was writing a script for his life, and he was just the actor doing what she'd assigned. She'd underlined rules in all caps, and she called it our plan, like cheating was a business model. She talked about his potential, his image, his discipline, and the way she wrote his name felt like she was carving it into something she owned. At the bottom of one message, she'd attached a document. A PDF. A contract. He watched my face while I opened it, and the fear in his eyes wasn't fear of losing me. It was fear of what she could do if he didn't keep performing. The contract wasn't romantic. It was a list of demands. He had to send her screenshots of his bank app every week. He had to delete unapproved contacts. He had to meet her on schedule. And if he broke any rule, she wrote, she would release what you gave me. I scrolled down, and there was a section labeled collateral. He lunged for the phone the second I got to that line, but I'd already seen the first item. A video file. With a thumbnail of his face, sweaty and scared, framed in harsh light like an interrogation. I looked up at him, and he finally cracked. It was supposed to be perfect, he said, voice shaking, like he couldn't believe perfection had teeth. Outside, a car door slammed, and he flinched so hard his ring clicked against the phone screen. I went to the window, pulled the curtain back an inch, and saw a woman step out of a black sedan in heels that didn't sink into the snow. She didn't look around like someone arriving at the wrong house. She looked straight at our front door like she'd been here before. And then she smiled, slow and certain, like the next part was already written. Her manicure hit our doorbell like she was tapping a glass in a quiet room, and my boyfriend froze so hard I thought he'd stop breathing. I opened the door before he could decide to hide, because I wanted to see what perfect looked like up close. She was polished in a way that felt expensive and wrong, like she'd paid to erase every human edge. She didn't introduce herself to me first. She looked past my shoulder at him and said, "You're late," like I was the receptionist. He tried to laugh, but it came out thin, and she didn't smile back. Then she finally turned her eyes on me, slow, as if she was scanning a label, and she said, "You must be the stability." Stability. Not girlfriend. Not partner. A function. I felt his hand twitch behind me, like he wanted to pull me away from her, but he stayed rooted because she'd trained him to. She stepped inside without asking. No hesitation, no, "Is this okay?" Just the certainty of someone who's never been told no in a room. My living room suddenly looked smaller, like she'd brought her own air. She walked straight to the coffee table, flipped his phone over with one finger, and the screen lit up. He didn't even protest. That was the sickest part, how automatic he was. She tilted her head at me. "He told you, right?" He swallowed like he was trying to push his shame back down. I showed her the messages. "Good," she said, and her voice stayed calm, like we were discussing a calendar invite. Then she sat on my couch and crossed her legs like she belonged there, like my life was just another appointment. "I'm not here to fight," she said. "I'm here to correct." My boyfriend flinched at that word. She leaned forward and placed a folder on the table, thick and neat, like she'd brought paperwork to a funeral. "I don't like loose ends," she said. "And he's been messy." My throat tightened. "Who are you?" She smiled, finally, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I'm the reason he's been improving." He blurted, "Stop," like a kid begging a parent not to embarrass them, and she lifted one eyebrow. "See," she said to me, nodding toward him. "Impulse. Weakness. That's what you've been tolerating." Every sentence she said was a small slap, but she delivered them gently, like she was teaching. Then she opened the folder and slid out photos. Not of them in bed. Worse. Screenshots of his bank transfers. A copy of his ID. A screenshot of his work login page. A screenshot of him on a video call, face pale, mouth open mid-sentence, eyes begging. "He gave me access," she said, tapping the stack with her nail. "Because he wanted to be chosen." My boyfriend's voice cracked. "You said it was private." She turned to him, and for the first time her tone sharpened. "Private is for people who behave." I stared at him. "You gave her your work login?" He didn't answer me. He looked at her, waiting for permission to speak. She watched me absorb that, then softened again, like she enjoyed pacing the pain. "I'm not taking him from you," she said. "You can keep the title. I only need compliance." Compliance. Like he was a dog, like I was a roommate. Then she reached into her purse and pulled out his ring. My stomach dropped because I'd watched him put it on that morning. She held it up between two fingers. "This is how I know he lies. He forgets what he promises." He stepped forward, voice shaking. "Give it back." She laughed, same laugh from the earbuds, bright, controlled, and cruel. "Oh," she said. "You want things back now?" She stood, walked to the door, and paused like she was remembering something. Without turning, she said, "Your HR meeting?" "I scheduled it." My boyfriend went white. She looked over her shoulder at me with a sweet little shrug. "He's talented. I'd hate for him to waste that job on a normal life." Then she opened the door and added, like an afterthought, "You have 48 hours to decide what you are in this story." The door clicked shut, and my boyfriend made a choking sound like he'd been punched. His phone buzzed instantly. A new message. From her. 2 words. "Prove it." His phone buzzed again before I could even inhale, and he lifted it like a prayer he hated. I didn't let him answer. I took the folder she left, walked to the sink, and dumped it into the water like it was grease on a plate. He lunged, shouting my name, but the ink bled anyway, the screenshots curling as if the paper itself wanted to forget. He stared at me, panicked. "You don't get it, she'll ruin me." I said, "She already did," and grabbed his laptop off the table. He tried to block me, but I shoved past and opened his work email, and the first thing I saw was a forwarded chain from an address I didn't recognize. Subject, evidence. He'd been sending her everything. Not because she hacked him. Because he'd been reporting to her like she was his boss. I clicked the attachments and my hands went cold. Screen shares of private company docs, his own typed confessions, a selfie of him holding his ID next to his face like a hostage photo. He whispered, "She made me." I turned the screen toward him. "No. You volunteered." That's when the doorbell rang again. Not a tap this time. A hard, impatient press that didn't stop. He froze, eyes darting to the window, to the hallway, to me, like he expected me to fix what he'd built. I opened the door. 2 people stood there in plain coats with clipped smiles, holding badges low and official. The woman from the sedan stayed in the driveway, leaning on her car like she was watching a show. One of the badge people said my boyfriend's name and asked if he was home. He tried to speak from behind me, but nothing came out. The badge person's eyes slid past my shoulder to the open laptop on the counter, and the second their gaze landed on the wet, ruined folder in the sink, I understood what she'd actually done. She hadn't come to threaten him. She'd come to stage him. My boyfriend stepped forward, trembling, and the woman in the driveway lifted her phone, filming, her perfect smile back in place. He looked at me like I was his last chance, like I could still choose stability and lie with him. I moved aside. The badge people walked in. And outside, in the gray light, she raised his wedding ring to the camera and let it dangle, swinging slowly like a metronome keeping time on his collapse.